Okay, guys. Hopefully, we are live right now. Right now, I am setting us up with the thumbnail. This should be the first live stream that we have ever had on this channel. So, hopefully, this goes well. Obviously, if something goes wrong, I'll fix it for the next live stream. But the reason I'm live streaming this is, as y'all know, y'all can tell by the new setting that I am not in Texas right now. I drove to Florida to see my family. So, I don't have the usual setup. So, I am kind of having to just do something completely different. And a lot of y'all have been asking for a live stream. And because I haven't been able to make it to the premieres the last 3 days, I think probably the best thing for me to do is spend the next few days just coming out here and being live and answering your questions directly. I think maybe that's something we can like. I'll try to stay live for about 15 minutes or so right now. Let me know if we have a lag. Let me know if we have anything wrong going on here. That way I can go through and fix it. Y'all probably hear my dog right now. Hopefully she stops doing that. I understand that usually we are a lot more organized than this, but we have to do what we have to do. And I figured might as well go live, talk to all y'all directly. Okay, let's see who we have out here. We have Killian, we have Dylan, Uzi, Pablo, Marco, UGF, Arian, Leonardo, and Uzi. All y'all coming out. Thank y'all so much. First question looks like from Uzi saying Tatum or Trae Young in a points league. Here, it's a little bit interesting because we know Tatum's going to give you rebounds, assists, as well as the points scored. And Tatum has been a player that, in those category formats, I've been a little bit hesitant about going out there and trying to tell you all to buy, just because we understand that the field goal percentage has kind of been tanking you so far with Tatum. But I think if we are going to be looking at this as a points league, with how young Tatum is and with how the Celtics are actually playing for something, and we can't say the same thing with the Atlanta Hawks for certain. I know right now it looks like they are, but things can always change in Atlanta. I think we are going to be going with Jason Tatum. I do not remember off the top of my head how many games both of these teams are playing for the fantasy basketball playoffs, so that's something that you're going to want to look into. But for a points format, I think we're going to end up going with Jason Tatum. Okay. UFG coming out says JT fantasy value after Marlon Mack. I don't want to talk about fantasy football. I am so sorry. I'm going to be live streaming on our Dynasty Fantasy Football channel tomorrow. So if you want to come out, if you want to ask me questions there, that is something you can do. But here we're going to keep it strictly fantasy basketball. And also, let me give you all a shout out. Everybody in Notification Gang, everybody in Premier Gang coming out right now, destroying that like button. I truly, truly appreciate it, my dudes. Okay, so Arian coming out says, who should I sell Jimmy Butler high for? Arian, if I remember correctly, I know you're in Premier Game and you're always at those premieres, and I'm assuming this is the same league that you're always talking about. That is an 8-team league, and like I always tell you here, man, what I'm going to be wanting to do is we are always going to be targeting the highest stud that you can get with an 8-team league, because I don't know if you had a chance to watch my basketball playoff strategy video for fantasy basketball. But there we were talking about now's the time you go and get those studs. Now's the time you really don't care too much about depth, because once you get to the playoffs, we understand that the majority of people, they are going to be kind of checked out. If, say, you're playing in that 8-team league and only 4 teams make it to the playoffs, then you're only going to be battling on the waiver wire with 4 other teams. And if it's an 8-man league already, there are going to be very few players rostered where you're going to have a great waiver wire options every single night. So if we go through, we go, you know what? The Miami Heat are a team that did not start exactly where they wanted to in the Eastern Conference, just because with all the COVID situations. And on top of that, we understand that the Miami Heat are a team off the top of my head, so I could be wrong here, but they play 4-4-4 games over the stretch of the fantasy basketball playoffs. And I don't know how you're specifically doing your playoffs in an 8-team league. But this is all for me to say, man, I want to be holding Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler is going to continue to perform at a very high level just because he really has no other option at this point. The team is going to be playing a decent amount of games in the playoffs, and to go along with that, we know that they are going to have to win. All right, so Pablo coming out says, is Jarrett Allen a sell high in a points league? Here with Jarrett Allen, I will say a couple things here. Okay, first off, I am completely biased with Jarrett Allen. I went to the University of Texas. Well, I still do. I'm going to graduate this spring. But the University of Texas is obviously where Jarrett Allen went at the same time. So I've seen a ton of his games played. And because of that, it's so hard for me to answer these questions. And because of that, probably that's why I don't want to sell Jarrett Allen high. If you look at what he's been giving you with rebounds and blocks to go along with that, I mean, he is a great player. I'll say that in a points league, I'd be a little bit more hesitant to hold on to him tightly. We know with Kevin coming back, Kevin Love is probably going to take some minutes from the other people in the front court of that team. So I'll say in a category league where we know Jarrett Allen is going to have an extremely high field goal percentage, maybe we hold there and maybe we look to sell in a points league. Okay, so let's go through Irish Spring Green coming out and saying, trying to trade Donovan Mitchell because of his field goal percentage. Do you have any specific targets? Here, Donovan Mitchell in a category format is a perfect example of a player that, yes, he is a great NBA player. But with how he is kind of killing you with his field goal percentage in a category league, his real fantasy value doesn't live up to his real NBA value. So I think that it's a decent idea to go out there and try to sell him. And if we were going to be looking to sell Donovan Mitchell, especially in the category format, what I would love to do is I would love to take him, add another small piece onto it, and go try to get Bam Adebayo. Because if you can go get Bam Adebayo, just like I was talking about with Jimmy Butler, I think it's a great idea to target those players that are playing for the Miami Heat. And we know Bam is a great category asset. And they're going to be playing 4-4-4 throughout your fantasy basketball playoffs. And to go along with that, we know that those are games they're going to have to win. They can't be sitting Jimmy Butler and Bam. They're going to be playing them almost every single game. All right, so let's go through. I see someone asking, hey, Mason, any news on Anthony Davis? Here, I'll be completely honest. When the Anthony Davis injury happened, I kind of came on here and I was completely ignorant about it. I went, you know what? Here, this is not a situation that I'm too worried. I want to be saying with Anthony Davis that he should be coming back very soon, and this is probably just to make sure that he is going to get adequate rest time whenever we understand that the Lakers have the shortest offseason in NBA history. But at this point, we go, okay, I mean, they are just continuing to push it back. They are continuing to stay silent on it, and the Lakers are falling in the standings. So we go, at what point are we going to start to get worried about this? So I will say, with Anthony Davis, I clearly don't know anything. I don't think that people who are real doctors know what's going on right now. I think the only people who know what's actually going on are inside the Lakers organization, inside the Lakers medical staff, and it's going to be very hard for anybody to come out here and say anything differently, to be honest. Okay, also, I'll say, guys, I see that we have a ton of questions here. Please, just make sure y'all have that notification bell hit because I'm going to be live streaming tomorrow doing the same type of thing. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can during this live stream, but I'll be doing it tomorrow as well if I'm not able to get to your question. Okay, so Jason coming out says, should I look to trade Anthony Davis, and if so, for who? Okay, so this is a little difficult just because, like I just said with Anthony Davis, we don't understand what is going on. We have no idea. I was blatantly wrong with what I was telling y'all a couple weeks ago, and I think everybody's a little bit worried about Anthony Davis. So I'll say if you're a team that right now is not a guarantee to make your fantasy basketball playoffs, if you're kind of on the fringe and you didn't make sure that you're going to get a couple wins over these next few weeks, then yeah, I'm looking to sell Anthony Davis, get something that's going to help you right now. But if you're a team that you know, hey, I'm probably going to be in the fantasy basketball playoffs, I can squeak by without AD. In that scenario, I think that his value is probably dipped to a point where you're just going to have to hold him. Okay, so FC coming out and saying, I'm trying to sell Bradley Beal in an 18 points league. What value should I target for him? Okay, so with Bradley Beal, I don't necessarily understand why you're looking to sell him in a points league. I would say that I think that you want to be a little bit hesitant doing that early on in the season whenever Washington was dealing with all their COVID stuff, and also Russell Westbrook looked like one of the worst players in the entire NBA, and this team was not going to be able to win games. I was saying, hey, I'm worried about Bradley Beal because when Westbrook comes back, Westbrook is going to be taking shots. And if we end up seeing this team stay this bad, I thought Bradley Beal was going to get traded. And yes, they are still one of the worst teams in the East, but they're not close to what they were at the beginning of the year. So I'll say with Bradley Beal, I would actually try to hold him. Okay, so Shirian coming out says, should I trade Dame and for who in a points league? I think that Damian Lillard is actually a great player to trade right now. And I know that People are going to hate to hear that because Dame is one of the best players in the NBA. I mean, he is a straight-up baller, and he's always disrespected, regardless of if it's fantasy basketball, regardless of if it's just real-life NBA talk. People hate to hear sell Damian Lillard because he's a special player. But we go through and we go, okay, you know what? This is a team that is honestly playing over their heads, considering the fact that they lost CJ McCollum and they lost Jusuf Nurkic for the majority of this year. And now CJ McCollum is coming back. Nurkic should be back in a few weeks. And I think that what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to look to try to offload the usage that they've had with Damian Lillard as of late. So what I would be looking to do here is if we can try to sell Dame off of a historic usage rate, if we can go get a Steph Curry, that's something that I would love. Okay, Lars coming out says, hey, what would be a great trade for my Ja Morant? He is overrated. Okay, here I'll say, Ja Morant is overrated in fantasy basketball. Completely true. Just like we were talking about with Donovan Mitchell earlier. A player that is great in real life. A player that Ja Morant, nobody's going to be surprised if in 2 years he's making all NBA first teams. That is in the range of outcomes. But at the same time, we go through and you go, you know what, with Ja, this is a player that's giving you no rebounds. This is a player that the efficiency isn't necessarily up to par with what you would want. The defensive stats aren't there. Ja Morant is pretty much just points and assists at this point. So even though he is a fantastic option in real life, in fantasy basketball, I mean, he has a little bit of developing to do. So what I would like to do with Ja Morant right now, if we can, is just like we were talking at the beginning of the stream. If you could go get one of those Miami players, if you could take Ja, and it's going to take another piece, but Ja Morant has the name value where you can possibly swing something like this. Take Ja Morant, add another piece onto it, and try to get Jimmy Butler. I think that would be fantastic. Okay, so Ashton coming out says, do I sell Deandre Ayton in a category format? Okay, with Ayton, this is kind of painful because halfway through the season, I mean, we were looking at him going, you know what, this is a good team. This is a player that's going to be playing back-to-backs. This is a player that's going to be playing a significant amount of minutes. I think, if anything, we should be looking to try to buy him low. But DeAndre Ayton, over the past 30 games, if I'm remembering correctly, has been averaging 8 rebounds a game. We know the assists are never going to be there for DeAndre Ayton. We know that if you look at the way he's been used this year compared to what we kind of seen previously, he is kind of being a lot more selective with his shots. So what that is going to do for those category leagues, it may help if we're looking at the field goal percentage, but it's going to drastically put a cap on the amount of points that he can score per game because DeAndre Ayton has been playing good basketball as of late. I know people don't like to hear that because a lot of people just view him as a bust from being that first overall pick. But with DeAndre Ayton, I mean, he is doing exactly what the Suns need him to do to win basketball games. It's just not translating over to fantasy points. So I'll say with Ayton, I think that we hold, as crazy as that sounds. I understand that I just gave this long rant, but he is hated by people in fantasy basketball. So I'd find a very hard time thinking that you could go and get something of value for him. Okay, so Jeffrey coming out says, what should I do with Jeremy Grant and or Porzingis in a 10-team points league? Here with Jeremy Grant, in a points league, he's going to be a lot more interesting. Grant in a points league is going to be fine. If it was a category league, I'd be screaming at you to sell just because we understand that the field goal percentage is horrible with Jeremy Grant because this is a player that really has no talent around him for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, you can't blame him for getting all of the defensive attention on that team and not being able to put good shots up. But in a points league, I think we are a little bit less worried about that just because the efficiency really doesn't matter. And here on the case of Porzingis, the problem is, yeah, he's been playing great over the past month, like I talked about in a video a few days ago. But the thing is, with Porzingis, how many games is he going to play? Even when he's playing his best basketball, it's not necessarily making a massive impact on your roster because you're not getting the games played. So in a points league, I would actually look to hold Jeremy Grant, although in a category league, I know he's a sell. And with Porzingis, since this is a 10-team league, what I'd be looking to do is I'd be looking to take his name value, try to package him together with another, I don't want to say a stud, but someone that has been making a consistent impact. Like if you could take, just say Anthony Davis, someone that we talked about earlier with some questionable injuries, throw on Porzingis to that and try to get a Zach LaVine. And I know that sounds crazy, But I would love to do that because you could see the other owner rationalizing it. You could see them saying, okay, we're going to get the Porzingis production now. Then Anthony Davis is going to come back and help us out in the playoffs, and he's going to outproduce Zach LaVine. Where if you look at the difference between Anthony Davis and Zach LaVine production in 2021, honestly, there's not necessarily a massive gap because we know AD has seen a drastic drop-off in his rebounds. Okay, so we've been live for about 16 minutes now, guys, and my laptop is about to die. I have to go to my little brother's birthday dinner. Like I said, I traveled from Texas to Florida to spend time with the family. So I probably am going to cut the live stream here, but I will be live streaming again tomorrow to answer more questions. I'll probably be doing this very often while I'm in Florida, just because it's probably the easiest thing for me to do, and I'm not going to be able to premiere the videos as I usually do, and I want to answer as many of your questions as possible. So we are 100% doing this tomorrow. Just make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you drop that like. Make sure you hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way you are notified when we go live. You can come out here. You can hang out with us, and I can try to answer your question. But yeah, that's it, guys. Really hope y'all enjoyed the live stream. Really hope I was able to get to your question. Drop a like, and I'll see y'all